Hello, everyone. My name is Marina Uraga, and this is my presentation for this week assignment for general linguistics. And it's about speech acts and the teaching of pragmatics in the L2 classroom. So let's start by explaining what pragmatics is. Pragmatics is the study of the spoken language and the context in which it is used. I like the way Jules says or explains this in his book. He says that it's the study of the invisible meaning, or how we recognize what is meant even when it is not actually said or written. So, these include matters such as taking in turns when we speak, presuppositions, and implicatures, for example. But why is it important to teach pragmatics in our L2 classroom? Why is it important to incorporate this field into our classes, into our lesson plans as teachers? First of all, teaching pragmatics will help students to better communicate a message and to avoid any kind of misunderstanding or misinterpretation of a message in another language. Then it will help students as listeners to better interpret the message they are receiving. It also has to do with the fact that having different cultural backgrounds means that we can have pragmatic differences as well. This is related to the fact that because we come from different backgrounds, countries, cultures, probably what is pragmatically positive in my language might not be in another language. And we can easily end up in a negative transfer when communicating a message. And this can lead students to communicate a message in a disrespectful or threatening way, and we don't want that. So, definitely, teaching pragmatics, teaching this ability, this competence is really important so as to give students tools they need in order to put into practice this speech act in the real world or in real situation. So for this project, we had to choose one speech act. What are speech acts? They are any utterance that serves as a function in communication. For example, apologizing, giving compliments, refusing, complaining. But today I will focus on the speech act of giving advice. So, giving advice is a directive speech act used to influence people to do something. The hearer is directed by the speaker to do something or not, but in the end, it will be the hearer's choice to follow the advice or not. The speaker expresses an action, an idea that was not previously thought about. And in English, is used as a personal narrative, as an indirect strategy. So the speaker will normally be speaking in first person and talking about an experience that he or she had gone through before. So these activities have been thought to be applied in middle school with teenagers. And my first activity is a discussion of the Speech Act. So, as a kind of warm up, my first activity will be to brainstorm ideas on what student thinks that giving an advice involves, or what does it mean to give an advice, how would they do it, what words would they use. Anything that will come to their mind, we will do that first activity as a kind of warm up and brainstorming. Then my second activity will be making a Venn diagram so that we kind of compare and contrast how giving an advice looks like in my first language, in students' first language, and in the second language. How are they different, and then how in which way they are, kind of like the same, and or what are the things that they have in common. And then I will like them, to think about if they would give an advice in the same way to different people, if they need to give an advice to a friend, to a teacher, to a patient. Maybe imagine that they are doctors and they need to give an advice to a patient. Would they use the same language? So that is the first activity that I thought about. The second one is presenting language to strategies for giving advice. So it's provided differences, phrases, or common things that I will be appropriate, set phrases that will be very useful for them to use. And when giving advice, we use a lot of modal verbs, and that will be this photocopy here. That they can have, kind of set phrases ready to use when they need it. Um, and this activity will continue with presenting students with the steps when given advice. So, for example, step one is, did the person ask for an advice? Sometimes people just want to talk about something, just vent about something, and they are not actually asking us to give them any kind of advice. So we don't want, to give an advice when we were not asked to. So, is there a hint there that we can think about when that person is telling us something that is telling us, okay, they really want us to give them an advice? Then the use of body language, open-ended questions, and finally giving the actual advice to that person. Part two of this activity will be imagine, the following situation. Can you put the following phrases in order to give an advice? So they have a set situation, and they have to, following previous steps, put the sentences or those phrases in order. Part three will be, now it's your turn, read the following situation and give your own advice. So they have the situation there. And now that they have previously seen and worked with examples, they have to write their own piece of the conversation. So by doing that, we are following the I do, we do, you do example, in which they start, with an example from the teacher, we do it all together, and then finally they need to come up with their own, production. Activity three will be listening and identifying given advice. So I will ask students to watch the following video. It's a real life situation spoken by other people, and then I will have them discuss what they think about that video they've just watched. So I will give them, kind of like a cardboard, so that they can work into groups and they can identify all of the different things that were said in that video. And finally, I will have them role play a situation. I think that when working with speech acts, it's really important that they get to, um, perform that speech act. And role play, it will encourage students to think critically. So they will have to come up with ideas on how to solve that situation or how to give an advice in that specific situation, and that will help them also to see situations from a different perspectives. And so that was my last activity that I thought it was nice to kind of starting like with a warm up, teaching them the steps for giving advice, making them practice, and then finally doing the role play. So those were my activities suggested for this presentation. I hope you really liked, and I can't wait to read all of your other work, the other activities that you prepare. Thank you for watching. Bye.